Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, the founder of SeaLevelRiseRealEstate.com and the author of 7 Sea Level Rise Real Estate Questions for buyers, owners, sellers, and real estate agents. Now, the issue that we're going to discuss in this episode is the importance of knowing what your city or town is going to do to address sea level rise flooding if you live in a coastal community. Most coastal communities are going to have to deal with this sooner or later. Where I live in South Florida, they're dealing with it right now. They are spending hundreds of millions of dollars in some communities to raise up seawalls, install pumps, raise roads, move all kinds of different infrastructure like wastewater pipes and water pipes. They're doing a lot of work in preparation for rising seas, and they're doing it now because we're actually experiencing the effects of sea level rise flooding now. Now, I think it's very important for buyers, sellers, owners, and real estate agents to know what is their community's approach. Some communities are ignoring it altogether, which is kind of silly because the water's going to keep coming up whether you say it's there or not. Sea level rise is real. Other communities are doing it kind of piecemeal. They have an idea of what they want to do to solve the problem, but like most things, they don't have the money to do it. So they're doing the best they can with what they have. My community happens to be doing that. They received a $400 million estimate from a contractor who said this is what you would have to do to address sea level rise to protect critical infrastructure, neighborhoods, and property. That much. And this is not a big town. This is a small town, but that's what the recommendation was. So they're doing their best. Now, when I discuss what I'm about to discuss, I'm not saying that people aren't doing their best, but what I am saying is that it's not enough. We're having some problems, and it's just not enough. And these are problems that have been going on for many years. We have an area along the Intracoastal near our downtown district that during the king tide sea level rise flooding period, which runs from about September through January, it floods chronically. It's always flooding about every other week when we either have the full moon or the new moon, which are both times when the king tides are at their worst. They will have flooding in these neighborhoods, and people's property is being impacted by it. Now, their response has been to raise seawalls, and they're doing that kind of piecemeal. In this one section, we have a marina where they're working right now on raising up the seawalls and putting in new docks. We have a neighborhood right next to it where they're not doing anything, and it has the worst flooding. It's just so sad to see those waters come in because these residents, these property owners, will be dealing with this problem pretty much now through January, every other week. It's just heart-rending to see. And then we have a park where they raised up a seawall a couple of years ago at great expense so that a couple of cruise ships, small cruise ships that go up and down the Intracoastal, could load and unload their passengers and their the products that they need for their bar and restaurant, and also they did that to protect the park. But they made a huge mistake. The huge mistake was they left a gap. They left a gap about this big. I think you can see it in the video. They left a gap about this big in the wall so that the boats could be more easily loaded and offloaded. I have no idea how this was supposed to work because a seawall with a gap in it isn't a seawall. It's a wall with a gap in it that when the waters come up on the Intracoastal, it floods into the park. Now, when I pointed this out last year, the city officials responded that they were going to get a gate. They were going to get a gate to block the gap so when the water comes up, it couldn't get into the park anymore. Well, what they got instead was a giant pillow thing that's supposed to press against the wall and keep the water from coming into the park. And it's not working. It's just not. And there's two reasons. First of all, it doesn't look like it's pressed up against the wall and being used properly. And the second reason is the wall itself apparently has some problems, because water is welling up from the back side of the wall. So you have the intracoastal, then you have the park side of the wall, and water is welling up right there and filling the park again anyways. So a permeable seawall is not a good thing. So what this is telling me is, yes, the community is trying, the city government is trying to address sea level rise, but it's not doing a very good job of it. And people need to know that. They need to know it, because if we're not getting it done, sooner or later, as the sea level rises, this water is going to push further inland. It's going to damage more critical infrastructure, it's going to damage roads, and it's going to damage people's property. So this is a problem. So what I'm telling you to do in this video is, if you live in a coastal community that may be impacted by sea level rise flooding, you have to make sure, first of all, that you know what is the plan to, well actually for buyers, first of all you have to know, is sea level rise occurring in this community? Everyone needs to know what is being done to address it, and the last thing you need to know is, will it be effective? I mean, you really need to think this through, especially if you're moving into one of these areas, because sooner or later, those rising seas from sea level rise, it will impact your property. It will impact your property value, and it will drive up your carrying costs, your insurance, your taxes, your home maintenance. And if you live in a community that has a community association, it could impact you there too. So this is just another issue in the mosaic, the complicated mosaic that is being driven by climate change and sea level rise in our coastal communities. So I hope it gives you a little bit of food for thought. Now, the answers to some of these questions that we're addressing, the answers and some tips are in this book, 7 Sea Level Rise Real Estate Questions, which I am going to update constantly, at least once a year, so that the latest information is included, and some other issues that people are discovering as we move forward with this problem. So I'm Larry Richardson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next edition.